Hello and welcome to the Everything's Black and White podcast with me, Aaron Stokes. And since Newcastle aren't playing until Monday evening, that means a couple more days of talking about St James's Park and whether Newcastle United are going to leave for something bigger, bolder and better further down the line in the years to come. This, of course, comes after Brad Miller, the Chief Operating Officer at Newcastle. He spoke to an event at Stack the other night, and for the first time, we really heard someone from the Newcastle boardroom speak openly about the fact that the club could leave the stadium in the years to come. My Everything's Black and White podcast colleague, Andrew Musgrove, did a very good and extensive video on this the other day, so please go and check that out if you haven't after you finished watching this one. As ever, thank you for joining us on YouTube, on your podcast provider. Remember to subscribe, like, comment, share it with your friends, and all the usual. Thank you as ever to our sponsor, NORD VPN. And if you want to get your exclusive discount, you just need to jump in the description of this video or podcast and you'll find it there. So if you've been under a rock this week, or if maybe you've had your phone turned off because Newcastle United haven't been playing, or maybe you've just missed it, the big news to come out of this week was Brad Miller, Newcastle's COO, speaking quite openly, quite candidly about the fact that the club could leave St James's Park, and they have absolutely considered that possibility. Now, this all comes down to the finances. They believe that while St James's Park would be, be fantastic to modernise the stadium and expand it and increase the capacity, they know that they could potentially double their revenue elsewhere if they move to a new stadium. You only have to look at Premier League clubs around the league to know that, this is true. Tottenham, moved just a couple of 100 metres down the road when they left White Hart Lane, and their matchday revenue has doubled ever since, because it's not just a football stadium anymore. It does not just host Tottenham Hotspur games. It hosts stadiums with some of the biggest artists in the world. It hosts NFL games where Tottenham take a massive chunk of the merchandise sales from the day. They take a flat fee from the NFL to host the games there every year. There was even one point when Tottenham were making this new stadium that they considered putting a cheese room in the stadium just to give matchday fans something extra. I don't think we'll see that Camembert and Brie stations at St James's Park or New Look Stadium anytime soon on Tyneside, but you get the point. Tottenham have went out and made a stadium that is more than a football ground, and they are reaping the rewards of it. Now, if you weren't at the event or you've missed this, we will talk about Brad Miller's comments, but I think it's really, really interesting, and the reason for this podcast today is to talk about the fan reaction to Brad Miller's comments, and this is something that took those at the Stack by surprise. It took Brad Miller by surprise. It probably took me by surprise a little bit, even though I'm probably in this category that we're going to talk about. But I think it's fascinating to see that fans are maybe starting to change their mind about St James's Park, and whereas they were maybe once wanting to stay, they're now open to going. Again, we will touch on it later in the episode, but location. That is the priority. That is the key that holds all this together. And it's what Brad Miller talks about. Now, we'll dive into Brad Miller's comments if you haven't seen them. As I said, he was at an event at Stack the other night alongside Darren Eales, alongside Paul Mitchell, hosted by Matthew Raisbeck. And they discussed a whole range of matters. They discussed the summer window. They discussed Eddie Howe. They discussed the January window. They spoke about all sorts of things. But the big talking point was naturally St James's Park. Now, Miller told the crowd, he said, it's an absolute privilege to be involved in such a massive project that means so much to many people. I feel the weight of the responsibility of that, but I'm not hindered by it. Now, I think at this point, it's just important to say for a bit of context that Brad Miller was appointed Newcastle's COO earlier this year, Chief Operating Officer, to much less fanfare than the likes of Darren Eales when he came in, and certainly to Paul Mitchell when he came in. Brad Miller was an unknown entity to many, certainly in the world of football, but he comes with a really impressive track record, a really experienced CV. His last big project before he came to Newcastle United was overseeing Manchester Airport's brand new terminal, a multi-million, if not billion-pound infrastructure deal, and he was, heading that up. It's no surprise that he's now at St James's Park when they're making such a crucial decision about where they play their football in the years to come. So that was just the context you need of who Brad Miller is and why he's at the football club. He went on to say, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So everything we are doing, we're thinking, do we invest and transform St James's Park as we see it today? Or do we take that bold move and think about moving? We want to make sure it's a very robust process. I want to stand up in front of everyone and say this was a logical decision. With the long-term and competitiveness in mind, because as you have heard, it's a lot about revenue and PSR, we have to work hard to make sure everybody contributes to make sure we give as much money as possible to Paul Mitchell and the football side. In terms of the next steps, we're coming to the end of the briefing stage. There's lots of risks about St James's Park, but in terms of the programme, we need to think how long will it take and what will it do for us in terms of revenue. As Brad Miller talks about there, in the world of PSR, in the world of FFP, in the world of APT, whatever acronym you want to use, cash is king. And Newcastle United, if they want to compete on the pitch, need to compete off the pitch. And that means improving their revenue streams. And as we know, a new stadium, despite the cost it would initially take, they are going to make more money outside St James's Park than in St James's Park. Miller went on to say, we've also taken the opportunity to look at what a new stadium will look like. It's not about comparing apples with apples. They're not like for like. It's comparing apples with pears. The brilliant thing about St James's Park is that it's an iconic location. The atmosphere is there, and the competitive edge it gives the club on the pitch. It also has 52,000 seats in it already. But a new stadium doesn't have that, and we'd have to pay for all those seats. Now, this is where Brad Miller changes and says, for the first time, as I've mentioned, that this is a real possibility that they could go. A new stadium has the potential to earn a lot more, both on match days and non-match days. Remember that cheese room that I talked about? A bit like Stack. It has given us an indication that we can actually contribute more to the football club and the football side of the business if we have a new stadium. Can I dare to ask you if you're up for some audience participation? I won't hold any of you to it, and it won't go into a planning application. It's just a bit of fun. Now, I'm going to stop Brad there because this is the fascinating thing. And I just want to dive into some of the research that both the club have done and that even ourselves at Chronicle Live have done in the last couple of months when the stadium issue's been a topic of discussion. Brad Miller admits that when the club last spoke to fans and did research and polled them about whether they want to leave St James's Park, 71% of those asked said they wanted to stay at St James's. 29% of fans wanted to leave. By all accounts, the show of hands at Stack the other night was not a 71-29 split. It was more like 90-10 in favour of going. Now, we've done our own snap poll on Chronicle Live in the last couple of days, and 55% of those asked said that they've changed their mind, as you can see on screen now if you're watching on YouTube, and 53% of those surveyed say that they want to go. 53 compared to 47 say they want to leave St James's Park. So not as clear-cut as it was at outside St James's Park at Stack the other night, but definitely heading in the direction that the majority of fans want to go. Now, Brad Miller, taken back by this, he admits he wasn't expecting that, and I don't think I was expecting that. I don't think I was expecting the overwhelming majority of fans to be in that mindset. Now, I must stress that show of hands at Stack the other night, our Chronicle Live polls, any polls done by anyone else is not the message of the entire fan base. It's not, speaking for everyone. People will have their own decisions. People will be dead against going. People will be absolutely over the moon if they get a new stadium. But it is very, very interesting. Now, Brad Miller goes on to say, I think it's credit to everyone that they are open-minded. Everybody now understands the importance of PSR. Now, crucially, and this is key, Brad Miller speaks about what option 2 would look like. Now, option 2, if you leave at St James's Park, would be not too far away from the city centre. It would have more seats, and it would cost more than transforming St James's Park, but in the long run, it would make them more money. And Brad Miller talks about stretching the elastic band to the point of breaking. Now, he believes there is options in the city centre to move the stadium. Now, that, I think, is crucial, and why so many fans are not against the idea of moving. I think if you say to fans who wants to move to Gosforth Park and the racecourse, you would probably see 10% of hands going up, 90% staying down. I think if you say who wants to move in the city centre, you can maybe understand why 90% of fans want to stay. Now, I did my own little snap bit of research. Again, this is not indicative of the entire fan base, but I just think it goes to prove the point. And again, it's fascinating. It's really interesting to see where fans' minds are at. So on Thursday morning, I did a post on Blue Sky. By the way, if anybody's looking for an alternative to Twitter, it looks like Blue Sky is that alternative. A lot of Newcastle United fans have already made their way over there. The official club account is up there on there, and they are posting. I was just about to say tweeting there. They're posting regularly on that account. So if anybody's looking for maybe an alternative to Twitter, this is it. So as you can see on the screen, my post said, Brad Miller last night told a Stack fan event the club are considering leaving St James's Park in the hope of more than doubling their revenue. A show of hands from the audience suggested a stadium move was the preferred choice of those attendants. Fascinating. Now, I just want to dive into some of the replies, and I'll put them on screen and I'll read them out. Some of the replies I got, they followed the exact same theme, and it was one about location and it was two about moving. Now, BL starts by saying it would take something completely wild to make many change their minds. Any further than Leazes Park, I would just want to stay because it's just so easy. Then you have Nick Bembo, who says it all depends on where the stadium is. David Lee, who was at Stack the other night, says the show of hands was surprising. I would estimate those in favour outnumbered those against by 10-1. We can't say that represents the fan base as a whole, but it certainly raised eyebrows from Brad Miller. MG was also at the event. He says he was shocked by the amount of people in favour of a new stadium because it wasn't even a close run thing. Andy says he mentioned the elastic band. That wouldn't stretch too far from the current location. Reading between the lines, they must have some assurance that it's possible. Now we know that at present, Leazes Park looks like it might be the most suitable, the most realistic location, but we know that comes with its own problems. The land's obviously protected. So there's a lot of hurdles that would overcome there, but it does look like, judging off Brad Miller's comments, have they maybe had some assurances that a move in the stadium, in the city centre, is possible? Potentially. DMC then goes on to say, it looks like we've been teeing up a move for a while. The actual location will determine whether it gets widespread support, as we've touched on in this episode. And Lee sums it up quite well. He says, I think open expansions of St James's Park would diminish its magic anyway. I'm on board with moving as long as it's as close to the city centre as possible and the facilities are state-of-the-art to really make it worthwhile and it's not a generic-looking ground. Now, that's a really interesting point because we know Newcastle United's ownership are very, very supportive of the club. Yes, maybe they haven't backed them in the last two financial windows, but we know that they want to be number one. They want to be the best in class. Everything they do, they want to be the best at. And now, if Newcastle United were to move stadium, there's no doubt it would be best in class. It would be state of the art. It would probably be the Premier League's best stadium, both in terms of the facilities on offer and what it just generally looks like, from the outside. That again will massively sway people towards going. And again, you just have to look at the likes of Arsenal, West Ham, Tottenham, all these clubs that have moved stadium. You look at their balance sheet now, you look at the finances, but also you look at what they're offering in terms of the facilities, what you can get in the ground. Yes, Highbury and Upton Park might have been better for atmosphere than the Emirates or the Olympic Stadium, but I bet the decision makers at those clubs will say, look, we are now a self-running football club. We are making more money every year than most businesses in the country because of what we do on a match day. And Newcastle United's business makers know in the world of PSR that is probably the way to go. Now, I think personally, and I think Andrew Musgrove said this in his video yesterday, which you can go check out after you've finished here. I think we're both now in the camp of we're warming up ever so slightly to the idea of moving. When the topic of leaving St James's Park first popped up, I was dead against it. I thought, no, you've got to stay, you've got to expand it. But I think now, as time goes on and as the wait carries on and as we all wait to see what the club are going to come out with in early 2025 in terms of the feasibility study, in terms of their thinking, I must say, I think I'm warming up to it. I think it makes financial sense. I think, again, as we touched on at length in this episode, if it's in the city centre, it will be 99% easier to stomach than if they move away. And if it's going to benefit the club on the pitch and it's not going to, take the soul out of the football club, I think I might be joining those at Stack the other night who were all for it. But I know not everyone's going to be the case. Some people might have been like that all the time. They might have been, fully for leaving from day dot. Others might be dead against this. Still to this day, all opinions are valid. And look, we're going to have months to discuss this and debate it because we know Newcastle United's decision makers aren't really going to, come out and publicly talk about it until early 2025. So this debate will rage on. With that in mind, you can jump in the comments of this YouTube video or this podcast, tweet myself or Andrew at the Everything's Black Mike podcast Twitter account, and give us your thoughts. What do you want to see happen? What do you make of first Brad Miller's comments? What do you make about the fact that we could be seeing bye St James's Park further down the line? Let us know your thoughts. It is a topic that is going to rage on and split opinion for months. We want to hear from you as ever. We will have more stadium content across the Chronicle Live website across the weekend. We'll also have a Monday show on Tuesday with myself and Andrew Musgrove as we hopefully look back at a Newcastle United win over West Ham. Until then, as I say, let us know your thoughts on the stadium debate, and if not, we'll speak to you in the coming days.